of getting all your pages ready to fold them together and put inside your book. So when we fold pages together, it's called a signature. So you take a section of pages, and for us it's going to be 3 signatures of 5 pieces of paper. But those 5 pieces of paper are folded in half. So how many sheets is that going to give us in our sketchbooks? Huh?
You said like 5 sheets and 3 signatures?
Mm-hmm.
That's
So if we have, this is 5 sheets. If I fold these 5 sheets in half and I'm going to put them in the book like this, then that gives us how many in just one signature? There'll be 10 in the whole book. 30 in the whole book, 10 in one signature. So this one signature, because it has 5 pieces of paper, and these 5 are put together and they're folded in half, that means this one single signature is 10, and we have 3 of them. So our sketchbooks are going to have 30 pages in them. And I am pretty firm on the 30 pages for our for your sketchbooks, only because it takes a lot of paper. That's 15 sheets of paper for every student in the classroom, and that's a lot of materials. So we are just going to stick to 30, which is a lot. 30 pages as far as thinking of our classwork and everything, that gives us a lot to work with. So the first step to creating your signature is, it's called scoring your pages. You score them so that whenever you fold them together, they don't have weird creases that like splinter out. When you pre-score it, it's like it gives the paper a weak spot that it folds naturally at that spot. Like in a greeting card, have you ever seen where they just fold together really easily? It's because they've been scored. It weakens the paper in that area. So we want to score them in the middle of the piece of paper. This particular piece of paper is 9 inches wide. So that means if the middle of 9 inches would be what? 4.5, that's right. So I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4.5. I'm going to lay my ruler so that it's going 4.5, and I'll have these cutting mats for you guys to use too, so that you can use sort of the grid on the cutting mat to help you measure. And then we're going to use actually just a piece of this chipboard, the same stuff that we use to apply the nori paste. We're going to use it to score the paper in the center. So I'm just going to hold it and apply like a good bit of pressure on the paper to score it. Now can you see how it created that little line in the middle? Right there. So now there's that weak spot. I'm just going to do one more. I already scored. I'm not going to make you watch me score 15 pages. I already did 13, and I just left 2 for the demonstration. So I'm going to again get in the very middle. And for my paper, that's 4.5. For you, it will be 8, because your books are 8 by 10, so you're going to score it at 8. And you'll see like it wears it down, which is fine because you're just applying that much pressure. All right, so we've scored all of our pages. There's 5 pieces in each signature, so I'm going to take each signature and go ahead and fold them together. See how easily they fold? There's really no like weird creases or anything. So that's 2, and this is my 3rd signature. I'm excited making this tiny little book. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's going to be cool to have. Okay. So the next step is that we have to prepare to sew our signatures together. When we're sewing paper, it's really not smart to try to use a needle and force it through the paper as you're working. It's just really inconsistent. The needle isn't really the best tool for that. So what we do is we pre-punch our holes just using a push pin. So before we do that, we have to make sure all of our holes are in the exact same spot. So I'm going to open up my signature. And then everybody will have a template to show you where to punch your holes. It's just going to be a little piece of paper that has the marks of where the holes go. So you lay it in the center of your signature. I've got all 5 sheets of paper laying here together right now. I'm going to put it in the middle, and then I'm going to use a pencil, and I'm just going to make dots at every increment here. And there have to be an even number, or else you're going to end up on the wrong side of your book when you're threading it through. And you'll see that further in the demonstration. So I've done my first signature. I put my dots. And it's really important that you're using the same sheet of paper to keep it as precise as possible for the measurements. Like, don't try to measure them from each other. Measure them all from that original sheet of paper. All right, so now I've got my guides of where to punch my holes. I'm gonna make sure that these are really neatly stacked together. And then I'm just gonna take the push pin and punch through all 5 pieces of paper on all 4 holes and all 3 signatures. And then because in the binding and sewing process, we go through each hole twice. So we have these blue plastic needles, and they're very wide. So I take the blue plastic and I punch it through that hole. The blue plastic isn't sharp enough on its own to go through the paper, so I make the initial hole with the push pin, and then I widen that hole with the blue plastic. So we're gonna repeat that step for all of your signatures. Oh, there it is. Making sure that these are together. They actually do make a tool for punching these holes so that you don't have to do the 2-step process, but they're kind of pricey, and it's such a specific tool. I would never use it for anything else except this one specific thing. So this, to me, works just as well. Maybe if I was having bind all your books for you, I would buy it because I'd be doing a ton of them, but everybody just doing one, it's pretty manageable. So I'm making sure that all the pages go together. I'm using the push pin. All right, so now we can see all 3 signatures have the holes in the same places through the center. Let's make sure I'm not leaving anything out. So just as a preview, so you can see sort of where we're headed, this is all 3 of our signatures together. This is my front and back cover, so it'll go on either side of the book like this, and then we'll have a spine also that's glued right here. But that's how, we'd open up the book and we have all of our signatures inside. Okay, now to the sewing part. I'm gonna set these to the side for just a minute. We do use real needles. They're pretty blunt though. They're not very sharp needles, so I'm not too worried about you guys hurting yourselves or each other. I got this super fun pack of string that people bought us, so we have lots of fun colors. You don't really see the colors that much except when you open the book in certain places, but I still think it's kind of fun. So I'm gonna pick a color. We also have waxed thread, but it's like white or off-white, so I'm not gonna use that for the demonstration because I think it'd be hard to see on the camera. So I'm gonna pick a bright color. Let's do orange. And when we measure out the string to bind our book together, I have 3 signatures, so I'm gonna make sure that that's 1, 2, 3. And then I just give myself a little extra wiggle room. Got it? Now you gotta thread it through the needle. This might be the most difficult part of the entire process, threading the needle. But I tried to get some that have pretty big eyes on them, so hopefully it's not too bad. Maybe I'll get it on the first try. Ooh. You gotta be careful because the thread will split. I guess you could wet it. I would really not recommend licking it, not in today's health climate, but you could, I guess. And so if any of you have experience sewing, a lot of when you sew, you would take this end and pull it all the way through and double knot it at the end. But that's actually not what we do in bookmaking. So we just want to have a single thread. So we just pull it through like 1.5 inches or 2 inches, just enough so it's not going to come loose. And then we tie a knot at the end. And we'll probably double or triple knot it. If you're using the waxed thread, you probably don't have to double or triple it, but double it. And you want to leave a tail on it because we're going to use it at the end. The knot just needs to be big enough so that it doesn't punch through this hole. We want it to hold still. So as many times as you think you need to knot it to make it big enough. All right. Now to start sewing, I'm just going to work with one signature at a time. And you always start your very first, where you put your needle in, you start it from the outside. So I'm going to start from where it's folded out, and I'm going to push the needle in. And pull it through all the way so the knot, you have your tail there at the end. And then this part is super simple because you're just weaving in and out of the holes that you punched. The next step is where we get a little bit more, I mean, not really complicated, but there's just a little bit more to think about. All right, so the reason that we had to punch 4 holes instead of 5 or 3 is because you have to have an even number, so that I started on the outside and I ended on the outside. Does that make sense? All right, so now we need to connect our next signature to the signature we already have. So I'm gonna take it and stack it on top so that the new one is on top of the old one. And then I'm gonna take the needle and the thread where I came out of this one and go into the next one. So they start binding to each other. So you can see in the middle, and you wanna pull tight. When you pull on these, don't pull straight up because it'll tear the spine of the paper. You wanna pull to the side. And then I need to go out, so I'm gonna come out of that signature. Well, toot. There we go. Out of that signature. And see how this is looped like that? We want to make sure we get rid of any slack. So I'm pulling it, but not pulling it straight up. I'm pulling it to the side like that so it doesn't tear the paper. Now, this is where it gets maybe a little bit tricky. Instead of going like we did last time into this signature, I'm going to take this and I'm going to go back into my first signature, into the hole that it's across from right here. Everybody with me? All right, so back in to the first signature. So when I pull it open, here I am. Now, what you should see is that it's like you're completing this dotted line. So I'm gonna come back from outside of the first signature. Who could guess where we go next? Into the second signature in the hole that's beside it. So right here, push in, open it up, make sure you're in the middle. Pull it tight. Remember, don't pull straight, pull to the side. I want to make sure we don't have any slack. And I'm going to go out. So what is now probably my next step? Next signature. So same thing, I'm going to lay it on top. Now I'm going to go in, making sure I'm going through all of a really common not mistake, but just an issue that you might run into is like if I push in, like, okay, I'm in, but when I open it, I'm not on the inside. That means it didn't go through all of the pages. So you've got to make sure that you go through all your pages. I'm going to make sure not much slack, pulling it tight. I'm going to go out, and then what? Into the second signature. I think I heard somebody like barely whisper it. Into the second signature so that we're binding them to each other. And when I open up the second signature, it's going to be like we're finishing that dotted line. Pull it, make sure there's no slack. Now I'm going to go back into the third signature and out. Now, so we've got all 3 sewn together, but we've got a little flap right here and we need to finish it off. So the way that we finish is we take the needle, we push it between signatures 1 and 2. Can you guys see that? And pull it through. Don't pull it all the way, go through and knot it. There we go. Cut it off, and we're done. So that's how you sew the signatures together. And then I'll show, we're not gonna do this part of the process right now, but the next step is to bind the 2 covers to each other with a spine. Let that dry. After that dries, then we secure the signatures into the spine and finish our book. Make sense? Everybody's okay? Thank you for being patient. I know that's a long demo, but you kind of have to see the whole thing start to finish to really get it. Okay, you guys are angels. Thank you.